Well, hello. Welcome to another late night stream. As we continue on with the Hellskin audiobook. Okay. Time to get cracking here. Hellskin recording day 5, starting as always with 30 seconds of silence. Beginning now. All right. All right. Chapter 15. Hellskin, Chapter 15. Great start. 15. Sun stopped dead in the street, her mouth agape. "Not Yue from Lan Shui," she said. Albern's smile was broad and smug, and Sun knew he was immensely enjoying the look on her face. "The very same. Come, keep walking. We have a ways to go." But she—" Sun struggled for words, trotting at Albern's side. "What on earth was she doing there? What about Lan Shui? She was a constable." "She was, but she—" "Now hold on," said Sun. "I learned much about Yue from you, and if there is one thing I know, it is that she would never have abandoned her duty to Lan Shui. She took it so seriously that she was ready to arrest you and Mag just for looking suspicious." "Oh, her duty to her king was her highest priority," said Albern, "and that had not changed." "But she abandoned Lan Shui," cried Sun. "Why would she do that?" Albern stuck a tongue in his cheek, biting down on it as if he was desperate. "But she abandoned Lan Shui," cried Sun. "Why would she do that?" Alburn stuck a tongue in his cheek, biting down on it as if he was trying desperately to quell the grin plastered on his features. "You see," he said slowly, "I was telling you a story in which I was just about to relay my conversation with Yue, and during which time I asked her these questions, and Yue—" "All right," growled Sun. "Get on with it." Scene break, 2 seconds of silence. Mag and I stood there staring at Yue, our mouths hanging open, or at least mine was. It is difficult for me to imagine Mag being so flabbergasted, though I know it must have happened at least once. "Careful," Yue told me after a moment. She could not entirely banish a sardonic smirk. "Winter it might be, but there are still enough flies to be caught in that gaping hole in your face." "Yue," I breathed, "what under the sky are you doing here?" Clipped out a little bit there. "That gaping hole in your face." "Yue," I breathed, "what under the sky are you doing here?" Mag arched an eyebrow. "And what in the dark below while you were answering questions?" "Ha!" said Yue. "Pardon me," said Kuhn. His smile had returned, but it was sharp as a razor's edge. "You are carrying on a conversation as though you are the only ones invested in its outcome. Let me kindly remind you that you are not." "Of course, Captain," I said at once. "Forgive me, this woman is a friend." "Though how in blazes she found us is another matter," said Mag. Suddenly she frowned. "Alburn." Her voice trailed off, and I realized what she was thinking. Kaito would have known Yue from Lan Shui, and she might know, or have guessed, that we were friendly. As a weremage, Kaito could hardly ask for a better opportunity to get within striking distance of us. "Yue," I said slowly, "you remember what we were seeking when we left Lan Shui?" "Of course," she said, irritated. "You left to find the weremage—" "Ah." Her brows lifted. "The weremage. And now here I am." "A weremage," said Kuhn. "What is this about?" Yue turned to him and bowed. "Captain, I was formerly a constable in the town of Lan Shui. It is a modest place, some leagues southeast of—" "I know it," said Kuhn. "Go on." Yue nodded towards us. "These two traveled through the town some months ago. There was a weremage who caused some local trouble, and they helped me resolve the issue. But the weremage was never found." She scowled at the two of us. "They are afraid—" But the weremage was never found." She scowled at the two of us. "They are afraid I might be her, which is an uncommon display of good sense." Kuhn's brows shot for the sky. "You certainly seem familiar with their antics." "And I guess that you are as well," said Yue, bowing again. "But they are right, sir. I could be the weremage in disguise." Mag opened her mouth to speak, but I gripped her arm to stop her. She could offer to test Yue. She had learned how in Kalentin, but I did not think it wise to reveal that knowledge to Kuhn, for it might lead to awkward questions. Fortunately, Kuhn solved the problem for us. "Prudence is always a wise course. Forgive me, Lieutenant Zhou, test her if you would." Zhen, Kuhn's nephew, stepped forwards. He sheathed his sword as he approached Yue and stood before her, a pace away. Yue held her ground, but her jaw clenched as she looked at him. "A test," she said. "I've never heard of this." "Most have not," said Zhishnifer. "Most have at him. Most have not," she said. I've never heard of this. Most have not, said Jin. It is taught to some within the order, and it is quite foolproof. Yue lifted her chin. Very well. What do you need me to do? Nothing, said Jin. But I must strike you. Very well. What do you need me to do? Nothing, said Jin. But I must strike you. Nothing too damaging, I promise, but it will daze you for a moment. She fought a scowl. You are certain this works? I am, said Jin. Yue sighed. Very well. Do what you must. Jin nodded. Then he stepped forwards and slammed his hands into Yue's temples with two powerful chops. Her head reeled back and she blinked hard against the pain. But her eyes did not glow, and soon her vision seemed to clear. She glared at Jin. That hurt. I laughed out loud. Yet it was worth it, at least to me. I went running forwards to embrace her, Mag only a pace behind me. I struck Yue hard and wrapped her in a hug. But why are you here, Yue? I said quietly. Quietly, probably. Probably should say the line quietly, if it's followed by a dialogue tag. Only a pace behind me. I struck Yue hard and wrapped her in a hug. But why are you here, Yue? I said quietly. To find and aid you two, of course, you great idiot, she growled. Excuse me, said Kun. You keep forgetting the rest of us are here, and it begins to border on offense. Apologies, Captain, said Yue, stepping towards him. I have sought these two across Dorsey. If they have joined your efforts in this civil war, then I would pledge my services as well. I have sought these, said Yue, stepping towards him. I have sought these two across Dorsey. If they have joined your efforts in this civil war, then I would pledge my service as well. Would you now? Said Kun. Sky save me. I am nearly drowning in recruits, seemingly whether I wish them or not. You could hardly ask for a better sword arm than hers. Oh, that's Albern. Me. I am... I am nearly drowning in recruits, seemingly whether I wish them or not. You could hardly ask for a better sword arm than hers, I told him. Mag and I will vouch for her. That is no surprise, said Kun. I imagine you have friends scattered all across the 9 kingdoms, turning up when one least expects it. This whole fucking line sucks. I will vouch for her. That is no surprise, said Kun. I imagine you have friends scattered all across the 9 kingdoms, turning up when one least expects it. I did not miss the subtle dig. That could also have been a description of the shades. I thought hard, wondering how I could convince him to let Yue stay on. Yet I need not have worried, for Yue stepped forwards. The mystics beside Kun tensed, but Yue stopped while still 2 paces away. In a tone I had never heard her use before, proud yet deferential, strong but respectful, she spoke. Captain Kun, she said, I am Yue of the family Baolan, former constable of the town of Lanshui. I am kin to Constable Aroha in Opara, to Constable Pinti in Yota, to Constable Zhou in Danfon, and to Constabular Captain Stubhart on the High King's seat. If letters can be sent to them, they will all vouch for me, as will Constable Ashta in Lanshui itself. Also, my Uncle Joshin, he sheriffs the mystics. He sheriffs them with honor. Them, they will all vouch for me, as will Constable Ashta in Lanshui itself. Also, my uncle Joshin serves the mystics with honor in the city of Bertram, and my grandmother... Them, they will all vouch for me, as will Constable Ashta and Lanshui itself. Also, my uncle Joshin serves the mystics with honor in the city of Bertram, and my grandmother Brinna was a chancellor in Pinkang in the south until her retirement 5 years ago. Long has the family Baolan served the king's law, and I have no greater aspirations in this life or any other. I am the servant of June of the family Fei, the true king of Dorsey, and his kin, and through them the High King. I have 14 months of training with sword, shield, and club, and 9 years' experience using them in service of the people of Dorsey. With these companions, Albert and Mag, I have fought and defeated vampires, and I would throw myself into the maw of 1,000 worse horrors to protect the 9 kingdoms. She fell to her knee right there in the slushy mud, and she bowed her head to Kun. I decry the false pretender, Wojin, who now sits the throne, and all who swear fealty to him. I know of the shades who threaten the 9 kingdoms, and I pledge myself to their defeat. I have fought them already, and I will fight them again if given the opportunity, and I will not stop until their evil is driven from the land. If I may aid in your enemy's defeat by the strength of my arm, it is yours. If I may bring you to victory by what courage I have, I pledge it. And if I can uphold the order of the 9 kingdoms by either my life or my death, I give them both into your service, as I did when first I donned the red armor of my station. We all stood frozen. The air fell to silence. Some nearby militia had drifted closer as she spoke, and now everyone present stood in silent astonishment. Kun studied her. His perpetual smile had fallen away, and yet that did not worry me. I could tell he was impressed. He dismounted, stepped forwards, and took Yue's shoulder. Firmly, but not roughly, he pulled her to her feet. I accept your service, Yue of the family Baolan, and I count myself honored to do so, he said. If every soldier who marched for the High King were of your caliber, I do not doubt the war would be over within a month. Were of your caliber, I do not doubt the war would be over within a month. His smile returned, and he looked at Mag and me over Yue's shoulders. If all the 2 of you end up doing is bringing me her aid, I will consider myself well served and more than compensated for losing our wager. I bowed. Thank you, Captain. His gaze returned to Yue, and he arched an eyebrow. Vampires! I shall need to hear that tale, but not now. I will summon you for council after supper to hear this information you have on the shades. Be ready. Yue saluted with a fist over her heart. Yes, sir. He gave her a sharp nod and then turned to Zhen, who still stood close by. That is enough of a march for today. Order the column to make camp for the night. So saying, he set off back to his mystics. Yue turned to Mag and me, and she folded her arms under her chest. Well, she said, now that I have saved you from trouble again, we should talk. We should, but I would be remiss not to send for Dryleaf. I turned to Chausaku, who stood close by. He and the rest of my squadron had observed all these proceedings with wide eyes, and more of a... Yes, not to send for Dryleaf. I turned to Chausaku, who stood close by. He and the rest of my squadron had observed all these proceedings with wide eyes, and more than a few of them with mouths hanging half open. Chausaku, fetch Dryleaf from the train, if you would. He will want to be here. Sir, he said with a nod. For a moment longer he stared at Yue, Mag, and me, but at last he set off, his tail of locks swinging behind him. Halan, I said. He snapped his tail of locks swinging behind him. "Hold on," I said. He snapped sharply to attention, beard bristling. "See that everyone gets themselves well situated. Keep the tent line straight this time, and call for me if you need me." "Sir," said Halan with a nod. He turned to the rest of the unit. "You heard the sergeant. Line 'em up nice, little ones, or I'll have you digging latrines tonight." Mag turned to her squadron. "Debu, Lee, can you see to arrangements?" Of course, sir. Of course, sir." "Yeah, oh, yeah, do you yield? Do you yield? Do you yield?" Mag turned to her squadron. "Debu, Lee, can you see to arrangements?" "Of course, sir," said Debu with a nod. Lee echoed him after a moment, and then slung her pack off her back, her wandering gaze momentarily fixed on Yue. Yue was now looking at us with one brow cocked. "Sergeants, are you? A mark against my estimation of the captain if he elevated you so." I laughed. "I'm sure it will reassure you to know that we forced him into it. But dark below, Yue, what brought you here?" "That is a bit of a tale," said Yue. "As I recovered from my injuries in Lan Shui, I had time to think. When I became a constable, I did it to protect the kingdom. Now it seemed you were doing more for the safety of Dorsey than I was. That was an untenable thought. And by the time I had finished healing, Lan Shui had been quiet and peaceful for many weeks. Ashta, it turns out, is more than capable of dealing with day-to-day affairs. She had even hired a new constable to help her, and I felt unnecessary. So I turned my command over to her and tried to follow you to Opara. But when I reached it, I learned that you had come and then left and then come and then left again." "Wait," said Mag, holding up a hand. "Who told you all that?" Yue shrugged again. "The Rangatira's constables. A cousin of mine named Aroha serves there." I raised my brows. "Do all of your kin take the red leather?" "Those who do not take the red cloak," she said, glowering. "May I tell my story, or will you continue to interrupt me at every opportunity?" "May I tell my story, or will you continue to interrupt me at every opportunity?" "We make no promises," said Mag. Just at that moment, Dryleaf came hurrying up, his arm in Chausiku's. At his heels came Oku, and as soon as the hound spotted Yue, he came bounding forwards with great leaps and barks. Yue looked down at him with a frown she could not quite maintain. "You still have the mutt," she said. "Yue," I said reproachfully. "Oh, all right," she said. She scratched him behind the ears as Dryleaf came hobbling forwards, his arms outstretched. "Yue!" he cried. The moment Yue took his hands, he seized her around the neck and pulled her down for a hug. I saw tears shining in his eyes as he embraced her. "Dear, dear, dear girl! What young chap... What in his eyes as he embraced her. "Dear, dear, dear girl! When young Chausiku here told me it was you, I hardly dared to believe him." "Hello, old man," said Yue. She returned his hug, squeezing him mayhap a bit harder than she should have, what with his age. "I'm glad to see you safe, but dismayed to find you still following these fools as they traipse across all the fish. Turned his hug, squeezing him mayhap a bit harder than she should have, what with his age. "I'm glad to see you safe, but dismayed to find you still following these fools as they traipse across all the 9 lands." "They have taken excellent care. Oh boy, what is up with me tonight?" "Find you still following these fools as they traipse across all the 9 lands." "They have taken excellent care of me," chuckled Dryleaf, wheezing slightly in her grip. "Of course they have," said Yue. "They know that if they let anything happen to you, I would flay the skin from their bodies." Dryleaf laughed aloud before pulling back and reaching up to cradle her face in his leathery hands. "But sky above and dark below, what brought you all this way?" "I was just telling them," said Yue. "But I do not mind repeating myself. It has been a long road and conversation rare. Mayhap after a meal and, a rest." She glanced back at Mag and me. "Of course," I said. "I imagine you have a tent? If not, I am certain one can be provided. I think Coon rather likes you after that speech." "Yes, that was impressive," said Mag, smirking. "I am sure it was," put in Dryleaf. "You do not know... Dryleaf is giving me the trouble tonight," said Mag, smirking. "I am sure it was," put in Dryleaf. "You do not know Yue as I do. Her talents lie far beyond simple skill with a blade." "They do indeed," said Yue, but she licked her lips nervously. "And speaking of which, there is something I would take care of now that most of the important business has been seen to, and before we talk further, or before Coon summons me to his council. Before I lose my nerve, at any rate." That confused me, and I saw my expression mirrored in Mag and Dryleaf. "What is that?" I asked her. Yue's gaze flicked to me and then away. "I made you an offer in Lanshui, and you said you would take me up on it when next we met. Well, now we have met. So shall you set up your tent, or shall I set up mine? It has been a very long road." "Or shall I set up mine? It has been a very long road." I do not mind telling you that I was struck utterly speechless for a moment. In wild desperation, I looked to Mag and Dryleaf, though I am for a moment. In wild desperation, I looked to Mag and Dryleaf. Though I am no prudish child of merchants, I doubted my cheeks had ever been so dark. Mag raised an eyebrow. "Well, go on then. You know what to do, yes?" Dryleaf patted me on the shoulder. "Be careful, my boy. Her injuries were severe, and she may still be recovering." I could only splutter and look up at Yue. Me be careful with her? She was a head taller and had to outweigh me by 2 stones at least. But then she reached out her hand towards me, and I saw her grow suddenly hesitant, timid, almost shy. There was a question in her eyes and a fear of what my answer might be. Well, I was not